Good morning, friends. I'm Joyful's over here.
Oh, yeah, it needs to go this way. I'm plugged in.
Right. I had to sit over here in this chair because she's charging her battery. She's plugged into the wall. She's like a Tesla. All right.
About as reliable too.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Lithium batteries are.
All right. September 20th, the Festival of Shelters, Nehemiah 8:13-18. On October 9th, the family leaders of all the people, together with the priests and Levites, met with Ezra the scribe to go over the law in greater detail. As they studied the law, they discovered that the Lord had commanded through Moses that the Israelites should live in shelters during the festival to be held that month. He had said that the proclamation should be made throughout their towns in Jerusalem, telling the people to go to the hills to get branches from wild olive, myrtle, palm, and other leafy trees. They were to use these branches to make shelters in which they would live during the festival as prescribed in the law. So the people went out and cut branches and used them to build shelters on the roofs of their houses, in their courtyards, the courtyards of God's temple, or in the squares just inside the water gate at the Ephraim gate. So everyone who had returned from captivity lived in these shelters during the festival, and they were all filled with great joy. The Israelites had not celebrated like this since the days of Joshua, son of Nun. Ezra read from the book of the law on each of the 7 days of the festival. Then on the 8th day, they held a solemn assembly as required by the law. The people confessed their sins, Nehemiah 9:1-38. On October 31st, the people assembled again, and this time they fasted and dressed in burlap and sprinkled dust on their heads. Those of Israelite descent separated themselves from all the foreigners as they confessed their own sins and the sins of their ancestors. They remained standing in place for 3 hours while the book of the law of the Lord their God was read aloud to them. Then for 3 more months, they confessed their sins and worshiped the Lord their God. The Levites, Jeshua, Bani, Kadmiel, Shebaniah, Buni, Sherebiah, Bani, and Canani, stood on the stairway of the Levites and cried out to the Lord their God with loud voices. Then the leaders of the Levites, Jeshua, Kadmiel, Bani, Hashabaniah, Sherebiah, Hodiah, Shebaniah, and Pethiah, called out to the people, "Stand up and praise the Lord your God, for he lives from everlasting to everlasting." Then they prayed, "May your glorious name be praised. May it be exalted above all blessing and praise. You alone are the Lord. You made the skies and the heavens and all the stars. You made the earth and the seas and everything in them. You preserve them all, and the angels of heaven worship you. You are the Lord God, who chose Abram and brought him from Ur of the Chaldeans and renamed him Abraham. When he had proved himself faithful, you made a covenant with him to give him and his descendants the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Jebusites, and Girgashites. And you have done what you promised, for you are always true to your word. You saw the misery of our ancestors in Egypt, and you heard their cries from beside the Red Sea. You displayed miraculous signs and wonders against Pharaoh, his officials, and all of his people, for you knew how arrogantly they were treating our ancestors. You have a glorious reputation that has never been forgotten. You divided the sea for your people so they could walk through on dry land, and then you hurled their enemies into the depths of the sea. They sank like stones beneath the mighty waters. You led our ancestors by a pillar of cloud during the day and a pillar of fire at night so they could find their way. You came down at Mount Sinai and spoke to them from heaven. You gave them regulations and instructions that were just and the decrees and commands that were good. You instructed them concerning your holy Sabbath, and you commanded them through Moses your servant to obey all your commands, decrees, and instructions. You gave them bread from heaven and when they were hungry, and water from the rock when they were thirsty. You commanded them to go and take possession of the land you had sworn to give them. But our ancestors were proud and stubborn, and they paid no attention to your commands. They refused to obey and did not remember the miracles you had done for them. Instead, they became stubborn and appointed a leader to take them back to their slavery in Egypt. But you are a God of forgiveness, gracious and merciful, slow to become angry, and rich in unfailing love. You did not abandon them, even when they made an idol shaped like a calf and said, "This is your God who brought you out of Egypt." They committed terrible blasphemies. But in your great mercy, you did not abandon them to die in the wilderness. The pillar of cloud still led them forward by day, and the pillar of fire showed them the way through the night. You sent your good spirit to instruct them, and you did not stop giving them manna from heaven or water for their thirst. For 40 years you sustained them in the wilderness, and they lacked nothing. Their clothes did not wear out, and their feet did not swell. Then you helped our ancestors conquer kingdoms and nations, and you placed your people in every corner of the land. They took over the land King Sihon of Heshbon and the land of Og of Bashan. You made their descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and brought them into the land you had promised to their ancestors. They went in and took possession of the land. You subdued whole nations before them. Even the Canaanites who inhabited the land were powerless. Your people could deal with the nations and their kings as they pleased. Our ancestors captured fortified cities and fertile land. They took over houses full of good things, with cisterns already dug, and vineyards and olive groves and fruit trees in abundance. So they ate until they were full and grew fat and enjoyed themselves in all your blessings. But despite all this, you were disobedient and rebelled. They were disobedient and rebelled against you. They turned their backs on your law. They killed your prophets who warned them to return to you, and they committed terrible blasphemies. So you handed them over to their enemies who made them suffer. But in their time of trouble, they cried to you, and you heard them from heaven. In your great mercy, you sent them liberators who rescued them from their enemies. But as soon as they were at peace, your people again committed evil in your sight, and once more you let their enemies conquer them. Yet whenever your people turned and cried to you again for help, you listened once more from heaven. In your wonderful mercy, you rescued them many times. You warned them to return to your law, but they became proud and obstinate and disobeyed your commands. They did not follow your regulations, by which people will find life if they only obey. They stubbornly turned their backs on you and refused to listen. In your love, you were patient with them for many years. You sent your spirit who warned them through the prophets, but they still wouldn't listen. So once again, you allowed the people of the land to conquer them. But in your great mercy, you did not destroy them completely or abandon them forever. What a gracious and merciful God you are. And now, our God, the great and mighty and awesome God who keeps his covenants of unfailing love, do not let all the hardships we have suffered seem insignificant to you. Great trouble has come upon us and upon our kings and leaders and priests and prophets and ancestors, all of your people, from the day when the kings of Assyria first triumphed over us until now. Every time you punished us, you were being just. We have sinned greatly, and you gave us only what we deserved. Our kings, leaders, priests, and ancestors did not obey your law or listen to the warnings. Listen to the warnings in your commands and laws. Even while they had their own kingdom, they did not serve you. Though you showered your goodness on them, you gave them a large, fertile land, but they refused to turn from their wickedness. So now today we are slaves in the land of plenty that you gave our ancestors for their enjoyment. We are slaves here in this good land. The lush produce of this land piles up in the hands of kings whom you have set over us because of our sin. They have power over us and our livestock. We serve them at their pleasure, and we are in great misery. The people responded, in view of all this, we are making a solemn promise and putting it in writing. On this sealed document are the names of our leaders and Levites and priests. The people agreed to obey. Nehemiah 10, 1-29. The document was ratified and sealed with the following names. The governor, Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah, and also Zedekiah. The following priests, Seraiah, Azariah, Jeremiah, Pashur, Amariah, Malchijah, Hattush, Shebaniah, Malach, Haram, Meremoth, Obadiah, Daniel, Ginnethon, Shebaniah, Malach. Oops, I read the same line twice. Ginnethon, Baruch, Meshullam, Abijah, Mejiam, Mazaiah, Bilgai, and Shemaiah. These were the priests. The following Levites, Jeshua, son of Azaniah, Benui from the family of Henadad, Kadmiel and their fellow Levites, Shebaniah, Hodiah, Kalida, Peleah, Hanan, Micah, Rehob, Hashabiah, Zachar, Sherebiah, Shebaniah, Hodiah, Bani, and Benuni. The following leaders, Parash, Pahath Moab, Elam, Zetu, Bani, Buni, Azgad, Babai, Adonijah, Bigvai, Adon, Ader, Hezekiah, Azar, Hodiah, Hashem, Bezaiah, Haraph, Anathoth, Nebai, Magpish, Meshullam, Hezer, Meshezabel, Zadok, Jaddua, Pelatiah, Hanan, Anaiah, Hoshea, Hananiah, Hashab, Halohesh, Pilha, Shobek, Rehum, Hashabnah, Messiah, Ahiah, Hanan, Anan, Malach, Haram, and Bana. The rest of the people and the priests, Levites, gatekeepers, singers, temple servants, and all who had separated themselves from the pagan people of the land in order to obey the law of God, together with their wives, sons, and daughters, and all who were old enough to understand, joined the leaders and bound themselves with an oath. They swore a curse to themselves if they failed to obey the law of God as issued by the servant Moses. They solemnly promised to carefully follow the commands, regulations, and decrees of our Lord. The vow of the people, Nehemiah 10:30-39. We promise not to let our daughters marry the pagan people of the land, and not to let our sons marry their daughters. We also promise that if the people of the land should bring any merchandise or grain to be sold on the Sabbath or on any other holy day, we will refuse to buy it. Every 7th year we will let our land rest, and we will cancel all debts owed to us. In addition, we promise to obey the command to pay the annual temple tax on 1/8 of an ounce of silver for the care of the temple of our God. This will provide for the bread of presence, for the regular grain offerings and burnt offerings, for the offerings of the Sabbath, the new moon celebrations, and the annual festivals, for the holy offerings, and for the sin offerings to make atonement for Israel. It will provide for everything necessary for the work of the temple of our God. We have cast sacred lots to determine when, at regular times each year, the families of the priests, Levites, and common people should bring wood to God's temple to be burned on the altar of the Lord our God, as it is written in the law. We promise to bring the first part of every harvest to the Lord's temple year after year, whether it be a crop from soil or from our fruit trees. We agree to give God our oldest sons and our firstborn of all of our herds and flocks, as prescribed in the law. We will present them to the priests who minister in the temple of our God. We will store the produce in the storerooms of the temple of our God. We will bring the best of our flour and other grain offerings, the best of our fruit, and the best of our new wine and olive oil. And we promise to bring the Levites 1/10 of everything our land produces. For it is the Levites who collect the tithes in all our rural towns. A priest, a descendant of Aaron, will be with the Levites as they receive these tithes. And 1/10 of all that is collected as tithes will be delivered by the Levites to the temple of our God and placed in the storerooms. The people and the Levites must bring these offerings of grain, new wine, and olive oil to the storerooms and place them in the sacred containers near the ministering priests, the gatekeepers, and the singers. We promise together not to neglect the temple of our God. All right. Getting pretty good at that, ain't I, Shelley? It's like speaking another language when you're reading down through those. All right. We are on the question section in the word lost, right? No, found. We're talking about the word found, and we are in the question section on page 52. Feel free to use the following questions for your personal reflections or a discussion in a group. What personal story could you share of being lost and found? What are the circumstances? How did you handle it? And how did it feel to be lost and then found? I remember one very particular circumstance where I was in the grocery aisle at the grocery store when I was a kid and I wanted pickles. And Mom told me to get pickles. And I went to get pickles and I got lost and I couldn't find my way back. And I cried. I don't know how old I was. Do you remember that, Mom? Oh, she's too deaf. No, in the grocery store in the Hannaford. She don't remember. She don't remember any of my childhood, but I remember that. Yes, that's another good circumstance or another good example. We were on snowmobiles. They had picked me up at school and she's laughing her head off. We were riding along and I was on the back of Mom's snow sled and they hit a snowdrift or something and the snowmobile went and they didn't have my seat on the back actually hooked. It was just sitting there, and we hit that bump, and I was holding on to the seat, and the seat came out, and I fell off the back of the snow sled, and they just kept going. And there I sat in the snow with the coyotes waiting to be eaten. That's a different story. That's not about being found.
That's the excitement of your childhood. you
Right.
know?
My childhood surrounds with being lost and people forgetting about me. How did it feel to be found? A big relief, because I thought I was going to be eaten by coyotes. Have you ever heard someone vocalize some version of all religions lead to God? Yes, I absolutely have. How does it help to think of Jesus' words in John 14 as not being exclusionary, but as growing out of his love? I don't know. That's a good question. No, that's right, Meredith. That's right. Jesus never forgot about me like my parents did. How might living life be like driving in circles? It is often said that the definition of insanity is repeating the same actions over and over, expecting a different result. Do you agree? Yes, as a matter of fact. How might that be true for you? How is it similar to driving in circles? In what ways might that approach keep you lost? Well, when it comes to my health journey, I can think of, that was like being in a constant circle, repeating the same things over and over and expecting a different outcome. Every Monday, starting something new and expecting it to lead to this miracle result. And it kept me lost. The less willing I am to admit I'm lost, the more lost I become. How do you react to that statement? Well, I talked about, when it comes to health journeys, I talked about that last night in my webinar. I talked about one of the reasons I feel like I got off the vicious cycle this time was vulnerability and being honest about it and actually speaking out loud what was going on and trying to, instead of act like everything was okay. React to this statement. It's just so humbling having to ask for help. It is so difficult, in fact. It's easy to forget that asking for help is actually an act of strength, as it means we were choosing not to give up. In what way have you experienced this? Well, I see it all the time with my clients, that when someone is in a group coaching situation and they're very active and doing really, really well, and then suddenly they disappear for a while, and all of a sudden we don't hear from them. We're like, okay, where did so-and-so go? Usually that, not always, but a lot of times that's a sign that someone has kind of fallen off the wagon, gotten on the struggle bus, and is struggling and doesn't want to admit it to anyone. And I have seen it over and over and over. When somebody gets on and says, you guys, I went terribly off plan, I'm really struggling to get off plan, that is when success really happens, because they have the support of people. So I definitely can relate to that. Note the 3 summary statements the author draws from the stories in Luke 15. Which of these statements do you most connect with? Why? Anything that makes you uncomfortable. I have to go back and look because I don't remember the selfish, unloving son, the coin, and the lost sheep. I wouldn't say anything makes me uncomfortable. I mean, when I think about the story of the prodigal son, I can I don't directly relate, but I can understand the frustration in the older son, the one who stayed there and did all the work and, took care of his family and did all the stuff. And then the son who left and did nothing and came back and his father accepted him. I guess I wouldn't say it makes me uncomfortable, but I guess I probably would understand that feeling. That's what love does. It pursues us in our lostness. When I feel lost in his love, When I feel lost, it is his love which shows me the way and brings me home. Have you seen that play out in your life? Yeah, for sure. For sure. In my health journey in particular. Here are a few more Bible passages to consider which speak of being lost and found. Psalm 23:6, Psalm 84:3, Isaiah 53:6, Jeremiah 56, and Ezekiel 34:16. Rita says, I've gone off the wagon, drove it over a hill, caught it on fire, bought donuts with the insurance money. Yeah, for sure. But now I've been on plan 59 days. Rita, that's amazing. Good for you, woman. 59 days is amazing. That's awesome.
Is Faith on there this morning?
I don't see her. No, I don't think so. Faith, if you watch this, my mother had dreams about you last night.
Does she need any fentanyl?
She wants to know if you need any fentanyl because she dreamt that she smuggled fentanyl across the border for you last night.
And
She was worried she was going to get arrested, but more worried you weren't going to get your fentanyl.
I was scared. I woke up and my stomach was just in knots.
Mama Joyful, the drug mule.
To help Faith sleep.
Yeah, she'd sleep all right with a little fentanyl.
I think that's because I saw her on Polo laying down and she hadn't gotten up yet. And that's her sleepy. Oh, I don't know what it was. But
Whoops.
How many government officials are listening?
Right? I'm messing up here. I'm putting captions on the screen that don't belong there. There we go. All right. All right. Lynn, she says, I'm sitting on my front porch and someone walked by. I probably heard that fentanyl comment. Oh, I think it's so funny. All right, my friends, let's go ahead and end our morning together in prayer. God, our Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this time together. Thank you for these women that show up so faithfully and are part of devotions together. And I just pray that it is honoring to you, that it blesses you. I thank you that we have the opportunity to read the word. I thank you for the reminder in your word today that you just keep bringing mercy to us. No matter what, you just kept giving the people of Israel mercy. And no matter how difficult things became when they cried out to you, you showed them mercy. And I find so much comfort in that, God. And thank you for that message today. God, I thank you for each and every woman here. I thank you. I know that there are concerns on many of their hearts. There are a lot going through struggles, loss of husbands, cancer diagnoses, cancer treatments, waiting for healing, just so many different things taking place right now in the lives of my friends here. And I just pray that you would bless each and every one of them, bring them all strength and comfort. I pray as we go through our day today, you will bring us just a good day. Help us to make choices that honor you, that bless our bodies, keep our bodies healthy, and strengthen us so that our temples can be ready for service. God, I pray for safe travels for mom and dad as they get ready to travel to Georgia. And I just pray for a wonderful time for them as they are there. In your precious name I pray. Amen. All right, sweet friends. Thank you so much for joining us. We're headed to First Watch to have some goat cheese on eggs. I know that. If I'm going to First Watch, I'm getting goat cheese. It's the best part. Goat cheese and potatoes. If they would just bring me a bowl of goat cheese and a bowl of potatoes, I'd be all right with that. Goat cheese. All right. I love you guys. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you all back. Listen, if you're not registered for the webinar, I'm doing it again Sunday afternoon about, I think it's 4:00. But if you go register on my website, joyfullifewithkj.com, and right on the front, the webinar is called How Staying on Plan Changed My Life, or Saved My Life, or what is something, changed everything. I don't know, something like that. Go register, pick any date, and you'll automatically get the replay. So I hope to see you there live. And if not, I hope you watch the replay, because I like sharing my heart with y'all, because I know most of you can relate with what I have to say.